It's time to end the whisper. So many suffer in silence. I might not save them all, no, but I'ma die trying. It's time to end the whisper. Never thought in my life it would happen to me, but it did, and now I'm the voice for recovery.
Hey, it's Jeff Breedlove with the American Addiction Recovery Association, and I'm with
Scott Cochran. Welcome to Real Talk about addiction and recovery, eliminating the whisper.
You know, Coach, I'm so excited to be here with you as we launch this podcast. Another step on the journey as AARA moves across the country and frankly, globally with this podcast and our social media to do what you said we need to do. And that's eliminate the whisper. And I want to start this whole podcast journey off because somebody asked me the other day on Facebook, what does eliminate the whisper mean? And what I want you to just come right out of the gate and tell everybody, why does that phrase, eliminate the whisper, resonate with you? What's important? What's the message behind that phrase?
Well, I think to get real simple about it, it all kind of came to fruition, I guess is the word. We started American Addiction Recovery Association, and I was calling people for donations so that we could get from state to state. I just remember specific phone calls where I'd be on the phone and I'd talk about it, and all of a sudden you'd hear, my nephew struggles. And it just, after the third time, it just threw me off. Like, why are you whispering about this? And it just made me realize that it's something we've got to do. We've got to step up for our disease. That's really where it came from, I guess.
And it's such a great phrase because it works well in conversation and it works well in communicating a goal. But it also describes what people say is the most dangerous part of the disease, which is stigma. So what you're really saying when we say eliminate the whisper is don't be stigmatized. Right. Don't be ashamed.
That's right.
And Coach, that's I think our message as we go across the country of eliminating the whisper, it's going to save lives, it's going to restore families, and it's going to strengthen community. That's what this podcast will do too. This podcast is going to be a multi platformed situation where sometimes Coach and I will be on talking with the guests, sometimes just Coach, sometimes just me, sometimes Catherine and Doreen will be on talking from a family perspective, because if there's one thing you need to know about AARA, we are determined to unite the voices of survivors and peers with family members and bring that political strength across the country in a unified voice. So we'll have sometimes where it's not so much two survivors, but it's two family members talking to folks. And we're excited to bring these messages. Sometimes there'll be deep policy discussions about legislation and funding, and sometimes there'll be what we hope are heartfelt stories about people's journeys, and sometimes it'll highlight the good work of other organizations, our partners in specific states and in cities, and the work that other folks are doing on the front lines of our disease. So there'll be a plethora.
That's right. And I'll be focusing on the legislative side.
Right. He is known as the policy guru. I known as the guy who gets out there and goes, it's the fourth quarter.
Yeah, so we'll switch roles.
No, we hope this podcast becomes something that you put on your podcast list, your social media list, as one of those recovery, addiction, epidemic-based podcasts that you need to check out, listen to, and share with others. Let's go back though, before we get into the podcast itself. And folks may not know, like, your journey and your story and my journey and how we met. And what I'd like to ask you to do for a minute is tell folks a little bit about your story. How did Scott Cochran, this legend with 8 championship football rings that people stop in enterprise rental stores in downtown Washington for photographs, how did this well-known, successful coach go from that to active addiction to recovery?
Yeah. Man, just so excited for this opportunity for the people listening. I want to just point out that you're going to hear from so many different sides of it, from the family members. So if you have someone struggling in your family, this is the podcast to listen to, right? If you are struggling, please just keep listening and reach out. But my story, just a quick snippet of mine is in 2012, a doc prescribed me oxycodone for my migraines because my migraines were just really bad from coaching, from yelling, actually, is what the doc said. And of course, the doc said, please just stop yelling. Like, yeah, okay, that's possible. How about you stop breathing? And I didn't think anything of it. I was making a lot of money. I was winning championships. I was working at the University of Alabama, and the doc said, hey, this is addictive. And I was like, yeah, right. I'm not going to get addicted to something. That's for the people under the bridge, And sure enough, within 2 years, it had me hooked, and I couldn't stop. And it just kept getting worse and worse and worse. And in 2020, I had an overdose, and my wife found me dead on the ground after a Zoom meeting, and it shook our lives. It shook her life, and definitely shook mine. But that, I went to rehab, and once I got out of rehab, I thought I was cured. Just like most folks, the first time they, get a little taste of recovery, oh, sure, I'm cured, and that wasn't the case. I didn't have a strong program walking out the door, and so I had a setback. And so then I got 2.5 years clean. And then I had another setback. And so in 2024, I decided to step away from coaching. And I had full support from Coach Smart, Coach Saban, full support, to get better and to heal. And then we started AARA, and where this started was really cool. I was literally doing an IOP, which is an outpatient program called the Commencement Center in Athens, Georgia. And they asked me, hey, could you come speak at this? Was it Warriors for Recovery?
Athens Recovery Warriors, right?
Athens Recovery Warriors asked me to come speak. And I was, of course, when you're in recovery and people ask you to do something, you just do it. You don't ask questions. It's just part of your recovery, And so I went to go speak, tell my story. And sure enough, the MC, or the person that was up there the whole time, was Jeff Breedlove. And so I'm, Googling him. My wife is Googling him, like, you got to meet him. You got to meet him. And didn't think much besides that. And we went to take a picture at the end for speaking. And we just kind of bumped into each other. And I had told him, hey, he asked me what I was doing. And I said, well, no one knows this, but I just resigned a couple of weeks ago from football, and I want to get involved in recovery in this world. And it was like, ding. He's like, I think you might want to join my organization. And I want you to take it from there.
Well, the story, that's his perspective. So let me add my perspective, because it's almost perfect. It wasn't, I didn't know you were speaking either there. So I show up in the room, and I was asked, so you go, and they tell me when I get there who's speaking. Well, instantly when they said Scott Cochran, I knew who Scott Cochran was. I'd never met Coach, but I had seen a couple of posts about this UGA coach and recovery, and I had tried to meet Coach before. And look, my son is a college football player, and I know how it works, but I was focused on recovery, and I asked this person in Athens, could you get me an introduction to Coach? And they said, well, yeah, but you realize it's football season right now, so we'll wait till it's over. And I was like, oh, fine. So I'd been waiting to meet Coach, and so it wasn't an accident that we kind of bumped into each other afterwards. I had one goal, to get a picture with Coach and just ask him, would he maybe do like a 2-minute video? Because I didn't know about stepping away from coaching. I was just hopeful he would like do a little video, talk about it's okay to be in recovery, as somebody who was well known. That was what I was hoping he'd bless our community with. And then, of course, I believe in, my higher powers, Christ. I think that God had a plan, put us in that room at that time, that place, on that schedule. And I think he blessed our organization and our family with Coach coming on with his leadership. Because, Coach, look, you have taken it to a new level. And it, and it's been a blessing to get to work with Coach. Now, my story is a little different, but it ends up playing out publicly too. So I'm in my 50s now, and I grew up in Atlanta, and I fell in love with politics, and I thought I would be the president because Jimmy Carter was from Georgia, and if Jimmy Carter can be president, anybody can be president.
That's right.
And that's what Jimmy Carter inspired people, and he inspired this kid from Ellenwood, Georgia, that he could do it too. And then as I go on and go to high school, and I start doing these social science reports and things, and I do internships, I go to college and get involved in politics at the collegiate level, and uh, start doing things. And I get hired by somebody, and I start working on campaigns. And I knew that, okay, as a little bit older young adult in college, okay, I'm not going to be the candidate. I'm going to be a staffer, a strategist, a consultant. And I like this. I'm great. I'm having a great time. But I enter into active addiction. And that lasts for 30 years, off and on. And I always tell people my active addiction began before we had smartphones and email and tracking devices on your phone. And culture was different back then. And it was easier to lie and manipulate and disappear. And we weren't always at each other's instantaneous awareness. And I learned how to manipulate that way. And eventually I started losing jobs as a result of my actions and my disease. And on one occasion in 2016, I was the chief of staff to an elected official, and went on a binge and got arrested by our own police department in DeKalb County, Georgia.
Wow.
And, that's bad enough. And I was charged with a felony, and it made the Atlanta news, come to find out, for 5-6 days in a row. And that was special. No, it was not special. It was life-saving, though. And I tell people in all seriousness, anonymity is very, very, very important to a lot of people. But everybody in the world knows that Iron Man, Robert Downey Jr., is in recovery. I'm no Robert Downey Jr. When he walks into a grocery store, everybody knows Iron Man's in the grocery store. I don't mean that at all. What I do mean is that I was on Google, and all these stories are about me on Google, and I have been fired. So I knew that if I applied for a job, or if I met anybody in any capacity socially, and they ever Googled me, they'd know right away about me and crack cocaine and addiction. So from that sense, I didn't have anonymity. And I'm like 50 years old, thinking my life's over. What am I going to do? And I go to treatment at a place called MAR, also in DeKalb County, Georgia. And I was so sick after the mandatory 90-day stay that they challenged my wife for me just to keep going to meetings. And they had a 2-year plan. And we're middle-class folk. We didn't have 2 years of not working. But she stepped up, and my wife and my son Jack and my wife Catherine, it is a family disease. And looking back, I realize now how they stepped up for me at key moments. And they stopped enabling me at one point when they learned about it, and they started supporting me, and they were victims. And so that's on my heart, that it's family disease. But my wife, she stood by me. My son stood by me, and all I did was go to meetings for a long time. I had my sponsor, Roland S. And I just did what Mar and my sponsor told me to do. And I think I needed every one of those year and 8 months after the 90 days. And then Mar said, "Hey, it's time to go back to work." And
sure,
I didn't want to go back to work. I could get system going. No, I understood in all seriousness how my Delta Airlines pilot roommate had already been back flying airplanes. And my heart surgeon roommate had already been back in the operating room operating on hearts. And those are kind of two big deal things to me. I think operating on hearts is advanced surgery, and flying an airplane is a big deal. And I knew professionals could succeed in the professional world again. But I kept saying, but not in politics or politics. But you see, that's just a lesson that I wasn't fully embracing the surrender part of recovery.
And that's what your addiction tells
This
you.
is what my addiction told me. So they were like, nope, you start making phone calls. And I did.
Hmm.
And people said no, or they wouldn't take my call. It was very humbling. But y'all, this is the power of connection. The opposite of addiction is connection. One person said, yes, Jeff, I'll help you. His name is Chris Carr. He happens to be the Attorney General of Georgia. It just took one person to say, yes, I will help you. And Chris Carr introduced me to this whole Georgia recovery community that I didn't know about.
Hmm.
And it changed my life. And so in 2019, I went to work for the Georgia Council for Recovery. And ever since 2019, I've been blessed to be a part of our recovery community in a professional manner as a peer. And that led to the concept of AARA. So Scott, that's all I got here.
Love it. I love it. I want to take it back to the arrest. How did who were the people that arrested you? I remember you telling me.
Yes.
I want a little more detail for the people because you told me, but I don't know the specifics, but I think you hired them maybe.
No.
We're involved.
Well, we were involved. So my boss, and she's now a dear friend, she's on our board of directors at AARA. In fact, she's our treasurer. Nancy Jester was at that time a county commissioner in DeKalb County, and she was very prolific, very much on the news of the Metro Atlanta media market any day of the week, talking about crime and law enforcement and public safety issues. I did countless ride-alongs with the fire department, police department. One of the coolest things, Coach, is I did a couple of 911 sessions, listening with the headset with operator.
Wow.
And let me just say one thing. If you're a 911 operator out there, thank you so much for what you do, because I've only dipped into your world twice, and the trauma they deal with every day. Addiction impacts first responders, and God bless them for what they do. But we had been the funders of the police department, and we knew all the leadership of the police department, and I was honored to be a small part of that effort to make sure that the DeKalb County Police Department had what they needed to do to do their job and save lives in DeKalb County. So I was their friend, and they were my friend. Well, on this occasion, at about 1:00 in the morning, on a Sunday morning, Saturday night after midnight, these two rank and file officers respond to a random call at a random hotel, and they don't know me, and I don't know them. And God bless them, they're younger officers working the overnight shift, new to the job, and first words out of my mouth was what you might think, right out of the central casting. Don't you know who I am?
Yes.
You can't arrest me. It's embarrassed DeKalb County if you arrest me.
Right.
And I'm telling you, I said that, and I look back on it, and it's a moment of great shame, but it happened. And of course, these two officers put me straight in handcuffs for their safety and mine. And but they must have started wondering because I sat in the back of this squad car for a very, very, very long time. And then all of a sudden, now by this point, it's probably about 2 a.m. or so. Blue lights start coming over the little hill, and more blue lights and more. Like, I knew they were coming for me. Well, these officers were the captains and the sergeants and the majors that I did know. And I want to tell you that they do not like being woken up at 1 a.m. and coming
think of that
to crack hotels. And my parents showed up, and my wife showed up, and Nancy Jester showed up, and it got serious real fast. And look, I didn't go to jail first. I went to police headquarters. And I was interrogated twice, and I've been told that the CEO of the county and all these people, it's like 3 or 4 in the morning now, are at headquarters talking about what to do about me. And look, let's be honest. At one point, they were going to let me go home, which is exactly what I wanted and expected.
Of course.
But then they decided to not do that. And they charged me with a felony. And the first words out of my mouth when they told me that were, I want to see a supervisor. I didn't know all those big cheeses were having a meeting down the hall. And this supervisor, not his first rodeo, was ready for me. And he said things that I'm pretty sure are not the DeKalb County Employee Handbook to my face in a direct way, maybe much like coach might say to a player on the field.
Never.
And,
I would never.
Then he stopped, this big man who makes one of coach's linebackers look small. And he hugs me. He whispers in my right ear, and I'll never forget this. He said in the most gentle voice ever, "Jeff, today's the day we're going to save your life."
Mm.
Now, his solution to saving my life was to put me back in handcuffs, which I thought was a terrible way to start saving my life. But I'm driven to jail from headquarters by a 26-year-old DeKalb County police officer who I had done 2 ride-alongs with. He was embarrassed. I was embarrassed. The sheriff himself met me at the jail. By this point, it's 5, 6, 7 in the morning on Sunday morning. And all of that to say, Coach, that even while I was being arrested and charged with a felony, and I didn't know it was making the news until after the fact, I was sitting there trying to figure out, well, how I can get out of this. And I wasn't worried about recovery. I was worried about my ego and my reputation. It's like Coach said, you know, it's not just people under the bridges. It's everybody. Everybody in America. It's the number one killer of Americans 18 to 45 is fentanyl poisoning and overdose. That's everybody, every demographic. And Coach, you have a great analogy of what that means because that average is 200 a day.
Yes.
And when I say 200 a day, folks out there listening and watching may go, well, what's 200? Coach, but you know what 200 is. Tell people what 200 a day is.
Yeah. 200 people a day is equivalent to a football team and their organization going to an away game. You know, that would be a Marshall, you know, when Marshall had the plane crash, that would be a Marshall type situation every single day. It is an epidemic. It is, we don't need World War III because we're killing off an entire generation. I mean, ages 18 to 45, this is the number one killer in our country. And honestly, that's why I'm so passionate about what we're doing. And so passionate about AARA and eliminating the whisper. Cool part, you know, if you're listening, is you hear Jeff laughing kind of through his story. You know, having a felony, spending time in jail, all of these different things. We can laugh through it now because we're on the other side. And I'm sure there's families listening that they're similar circumstance and it feels like the end of the world. And it does. It feels like complete tragedy and like a big loss. And how are we going to make ends meet? How are we going to get help? And I just want to give you some hope, right? Listening to Jeff's story gives me a lot of hope. Because I pick up phone calls on my ride in today. I had a phone call from a guy that just connected with me on IG, and he said that his friend is really battling alcohol. And I said, look, send him one of my stories because all my stuff's, you know, public on YouTube. Send him my story and tell him I'm going to call him tonight. And hopefully we can get him some help, some professional help. You know, I can't do anything for him except, you know, tell him about recovery and how awesome recovery is because it is incredible. This side of recovery is amazing. And to be able to give back keeps me strong in my recovery, you know, and that's how I feel that, you know, eliminating the whisper is really where it comes from.
You're listening to Real Talk about Addiction and Recovery, the new podcast from the American Addiction Recovery Association. Our president is Coach Scott Cochran. Now, you know Scott from LSU and Alabama and University of Georgia, and now as the head coach. You got a new gig.
Come on,
tell us what you're doing now.
I got it on. I got my West Alabama gear on. So now I'm the head coach at the University of West Alabama in Livingston, Alabama.
Turn up. You can move up. Come on. This has been a really cool little journey to get me right where I'm at. And that's what I'm gonna ask y'all to do. I want you to be right where you at. Whenever you set foot in the building, whenever you're thinking about what we're trying to accomplish, I want you to be right where you're at. Right where your feet are, keep your head in the same spot. Who I am, I've coached on a lot of good teams, coached a lot of good players, developed, I don't know, 50-something first rounders. So got 8 national championships, but I've lost 2. My goal has always been 10. It's always been 10 since day one. I want to win 10 of them. So I'm at 8. We is what it's all about.
Yeah! After taking a year off and really digging into AARA, I felt like I had time to do more. And so I had a bit of an itch, and that needs scratching. And so some phone calls started coming in. And after talking to Jeff about it and a lot of prayer, the West Alabama gig came about, and they asked me to be their head coach. It's a Division II. It is so much fun, but it gives me time to be able to still be heavily involved in the AARA and still be the president. So it was a win-win in my mind. I hope he thinks so. Time will tell. But I've just started over there and it's been great.
Coach, I think it's a blessing because God has a plan for all of us. And, you need to you're a coach. And these young men that you'll bless at that program, winning on the field and winning in life off the field. And hopefully you'll be blessed to keep what's in your heart and serve as president of AARA and use this platform to grow it and bless it. But congratulations. We all have a new favorite Division II team. And you got to get over and watch some of these games and
yes, come on,
and cheer coach and his team on. But let's talk back to you have 2 teams.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
But on your team ARA, as we go through this podcast, you'll see that we have really 5 kind of core projects. And we'll break those down deeper in other episodes. But just to touch on those, there's the one where we're working very, very closely with organizations across the country to get overdose reversal kits, not only in buildings, but past and general assemblies to be mandated in certain types of buildings, not private sector building, but government building. So the opioid reversal kit project.
I'm going to jump in right there. This is so crucial because Narcan saved my life. I wouldn't be here without it. So I think this initiative is the most important one because, addiction kills. And, through this process, what I've found is if someone's struggling, they need to have Narcan available. Family members need to have it. So to be able to have it in a public space, wherever there's an AED, wherever there's a fire extinguisher, will save lives. And so you'll see that 107,000 last year overdosed and died from this disease. You'll save some of those people, and that's what we're doing.
Yeah, it's so important. And so we got that. We've got, of course, our general advocacy project. We're at the heart an advocacy organization. We've got to advocate from Washington, D.C., the administration and Congress, to agencies, to state capitals across the country, but most importantly, in local communities at the county and city level, where so many decisions are made. And we will be leading the way.
I want to jump in again.
So go.
I want to jump in. We went to DC in what was it, June?
In June
of 24. And I thought I was with the heavy hitter of politicians. My man knew how to work a room. My man knew how to get things done in those rooms. Man, I was just sitting there like, okay, you're the man. You got it. So we got a good team.
We are a great team. Look, I appreciate that. But let me tell you what I saw on that trip.
Oh, Lord. Here we
Listen, I used to be a chief of staff up there, and I do know my way around.
Oh, yeah.
I had staffers coming up by the time they realized going to go, hey, wait. My boss, when they say their boss, they mean they're the member of Congress. My boss heard that coach is here. My boss wants a picture with coach. A picture with coach. Can y'all come by? Nobody does that. Legend status. But look, we can compliment each other all day long.
Right.
Scott is using his platform that God blessed him with to give back and save life. I'm going to use the platform that God blessed me with to give back and save life. And we need you on our team.
Yes.
And we'll talk about that in a minute. So we got the advocacy. Look, we're going to be a voice. Our voice will also combine survivors like Scott and I and family members. If you're a family member listening to this podcast, AARA is your organization too. Right there. Let me just say it straight up front. So we're also going to work on a 50-state project where we visit every state capital, having an event in every capital, bringing a legislative agenda across the country to pass at the state level. Everything from as symbolic as a license plate for the back of your car from that state to as complex as maybe a 70, 80-page bill to make sure parity laws are being enforced or there's no discrimination going on in the hiring process for our brothers and sisters as they go through their disease. So, and then proactive programs to make sure there's funding for recovery community organizations. And Coach and I have seen so many recovery community organizations from across this country, from the heart of New York City and the Bronx out to Nevada, across the Southeast and Philadelphia. And, schools, we've been to Mission High School, really the first recovery school in the nation in Nevada. It's a wonderful place. We got to get more funding for more programs, and we're going to be your platform to know how to make a difference, federal, state, and local level. So we got those in the 50-state tour combines with advocacy. Then we've got this very special project that I want Coach to talk about now. Now it's called the Purple Project. Coach, tell us about it.
Oh, so this is really cool. Because, if you look at what Susan G. Komen did for breast cancer, she made it purple. She made pink cool in October. And it raised awareness for breast cancer. It did all of these things. Well, in recovery, our color is purple, like you see on the screen behind us. And our month is September. So we are going to do exactly how she did. We're going to do the same thing with purple. We're going to have purple socks. We're going to have purple mouthpieces for football. We're going to have purple sticker for football to go behind the helmet. We're going to have purple wristbands. We might even have some purple gear. That say eliminate the whisper, that says AARA, to let people know that recovery is real. And it's going to raise awareness. I can tell you how big of an impact the pink was coaching in the SEC. And, it was, I think it was about 2011, 2010 range. A kid wanted to wear purple mouthpiece. And, I was like, whoa, I don't know if you can do that. It's not team issue, all these different things. And so once we spoke to Coach Saban, he was like, of course, let's, celebrate, the people that are, beating cancer or people that are struggling with breast cancer. And it became a thing for us. And I know Jeff has a good story about his son playing, but making pink purple, making pink cool. We're going to make purple awesome.
Yep. And Coach is leading the effort on this project. And it's going to be hopefully the NFL one day. He's already talking about collegiate teams and conferences and providers at the collegiate level. And we've been meeting with high schools. We've actually had one high school kind of launch it for us out of Columbus, Georgia. The other day, I met with some leaders of the Georgia Department of Education who are building the bridge in Georgia for us to meet with the sports authority for high schools and all the superintendents for high schools so that they can collectively buy in at a state level. But look, it'll be as simple as a parent buying something for their player at high school or college, NFL too, if you're a mom and dad out there, you got somebody in the NFL, and then all the way up to a conference or a team doing a very advanced form of this and everything in between. we're very excited about that. And I actually think my bias in this is, look, I can't wait for the day that coach tells me it's going to be on some NFL team or a college team. Those will be great. But what I know is going to make a difference on Friday Night Lights in towns across America, cities that maybe don't always get attention. When that purple appears and those cheerleaders and those football players and those kids that support the football team on the sidelines are wearing purple, and those parents up in the stands start talking. If you're from the South, you know what Waffle House is. And you might have the waitress at Waffle House whose kid plays on the team sitting next to the president of the local bank. And normally they may not interact during the day, but on Friday nights it brings that community together.
That's right.
And my kid's wearing that purple because so and so is in recovery and he wanted to. Oh, well, that's okay then, huh? Yeah. Oh, well, because and we break that stigma down. That's what's going to happen. The coach leading that way. Now the fifth project is also very important. It won't have cool stickers and mouthpieces.
Right.
But it's called the Recovery Friendly Workplace Project, and it will reach as many Americans. There's an effort going on across this country to partner with, in a voluntarily, not mandated way, businesses from as big as Delta Airlines and UPS and Coca-Cola and Amazon and all the big companies, all the way down to a local store on the square in your local community and everything in between, and help educate business owners how they can put some protocols in place to support their employees impacted by addiction. Not just the employee in addiction, but maybe the employee whose family's member is in addiction and their productivity is slowed down and you don't know why it's slowed down, but they're afraid to talk to you about it. So we've got to build up a strong workforce, and we got to have a workforce that embraces people with our disease. And so we're going to be working with businesses across America to do that. And by the way, we'll also be working with faith leaders and education leaders to do the same thing. Coach, most people today, when they think they have a problem with drugs and alcohol, still go to their faith leader first.
Yes.
And we got to make sure, whether you're Christian, Muslim, Jewish, Hindu, Taoist, Buddhist, it doesn't matter. It's our responsibility to make sure a faith leader has the tool, the language, and the resources available to help their congregate. And that's something our community's got to do a better job of. And we're going to partner with groups across the country to make sure the point of entry for so many people, their faith leader knows how to help us when we come there for help.
So you hear these projects, there's 5 of them. You hear these projects, and I will tell you, it's overwhelming sometimes for us. It's overwhelming that, but what we do is we take it one step at a time, kind of like our recovery. But we need you to join the team. Like, let's get real, right? This is real talk about addiction and recovery, right? Let's get real. Like, we need an army or a team. Let's go team. Let's
go. It's a team. It's a team.
Team, baby.
Coach has 2 teams.
Yeah.
You got to be on coach's team.
And we need you. Let's get real. If you're struggling, that's one thing. You can always reach out to us, and we will do everything we can to get you connected with. And we're a national group. We can help you. I've even helped people in Canada, so we're all over. But we need you on our team. And what does that look like, right? What that looks like is you paying attention, putting us on your podcast list, listening to what we have going on. We're going to entertain you, right? We're going to make it lighthearted. We're going to make it a little bit fun. We're going to bring on some really cool guests. We have some awesome guests that they're going to blow your mind to hear their stories. And then you're going to hear some legislative stuff. But we need you on our team. And so I want Jeff to go into what that actually looks like, because if I'm listening and I'm like, what do you mean be on your team? I'm listening because I'm driving down the road and I need some entertainment. I'm listening because I believe in recovery. We're going to have all sorts of different people listening. And so I want you to join AARA and help us eliminate the whisper.
Well, Coach, the way I say it is, I say, well, what can I do? Yeah. Or who's doing something about it? Yeah. Well, let me tell you this. The cancer community stepped up when insurance wasn't covering cancer, when government wasn't funding research for cancer. And they joined together. And they were conservatives and liberals, progressives and conservatives. They were blue team and red team. They looked like America. They were the diversity of America. And when AIDS hit in the 80s, families impacted by AIDS said enough is enough, and they joined together. That's what we have to do. The people impacted by diabetes have joined together. So what do? We unite around the things we all agree on, not so much the things we don't agree on, things we do agree on. And we advocate. We advocate to government. We advocate to business. We advocate to education leaders, to faith leaders. We advocate at the federal, state, and local level to say we need funding to save life. We need to stop the death. And when people survive, they've got to get into treatment and then have recovery, because recovery is for the rest of their life. And that's what we've got to do. So it's complex, but it's simple at the same time. AARA is on social media. In the Whisper, we had to shorten and eliminate a little, to end, because that this character spaces, y'all know that. But look, it's not hard to find Coach Scott Cochran on Jeff Breedlove or AARA. And we have QR code links attached where you can just sign up for our list. And I promise you this, we're not here to sell your email list, but we need you to join the email list. And that's how we communicate. We give you action items, things you can do. We let you know when we're coming to your community. Today, we are beginning a journey in 2025 to keep going across the country. And we'll be in cities all throughout 2025. As we launch this podcast in 2025, we'll be going to cities all throughout 2025, all over America. We'll let you know when we're there. And so it's the first step is the simplest step. Get with us on social media, sign up for the email list, follow us on social media, and you will then be informed. And we will have a regular series of updates on free action items you can take. And here's the good news, Coach. Most of those you can do through technology, the comfort of your own home. You don't even have to go anywhere. Do we need you to go to some meetings? Of course. But about 80-90% of what you do can be making a phone call, sending an email, doing a social media action. If we do that consistently and professionally and effectively, we can convince stakeholders that they can pass laws that are for us, oppose laws that are against us, provide funding for us, so that families impacted by this disease are getting their taxpayer dollars and they're giving look, Delta Airlines, where my dad worked for 45 years, is a great company that supports their employees in addiction. So I'll say this about Delta makes decisions about where to give their charitable dollars each year. Well, our disease is killing more Americans 18 to 45 than anybody else's. It's not Delta's job to know to give us money to support their giving dollars. It's our job to go earn their trust, earn their respect, and earn their support, that they want to sponsor recovery, prevention, treatment, events in your local community. So we're the vehicle. We're that voice. Coach, let me be candid, okay? Let me say this. Some of you out there listening might call yourself a Republican, a conservative, and you know what the NRA does to the Second Amendment. And some of you folks might be a progressive, a liberal, a Democrat, and you know what Planned Parenthood does for that issue. Now, they're progressive and conservative, but professionally, those two groups represent their cause in an effective, national, serious manner, and they stick to their cause. Well, we represent people impacted on the red team and the blue team, progressives and conservatives. We are, if nothing else, we're bipartisan or nonpartisan. Either way you want to say that. We're for all Americans. Our disease is not red or blue. It's red, white, and blue.
It's purple, baby.
It's purple. We're the one. You may live in a partisan world, but we're your bipartisan opportunity to unite everybody in Congress, everybody at your state capitol, and everybody that's split in your hometown, arguing over everything else. We can bring everybody together and say, can't we all agree there's enough deaths? Yes. Can't we agree if somebody survives, there's got to be supports for them to maintain their recovery? So that's what we are. We're going to be that voice. We're going to change America. We're going to eliminate that stigma. We're going to make it as cool to wear purple as it is to wear pink.
Heck yeah.
And we're going to revolutionize this, but we can't do it by ourselves.
That's right.
Coach knows how to coach a team. We need you to be the team.
Right.
We need teams in all 50 states. We need a team that can go to every state capital. And we need a team that can go to every single city council meeting in every community in this country. And that's you, the folks listening to this podcast. This is Real Talk About Addiction and Recovery right here. That's the podcast you're listening to. And this is our inaugural episode. Coach, what a blessing you are to AARA, to our community. And it's not just you and me, Coach. We got a board of directors.
Oh, yeah.
We got a board of governors.
Oh, yeah.
We got other team members on our team. And we're all coming in service for families impacted by the addiction epidemic. You'll meet our board of directors, and
That's
you'll
right.
meet our board of governors and our other team members, and we'll meet you. The last thing you can do for us before I say goodbye and Coach says to sign off, if you liked this podcast, do mark it in your favorite and invite 10 people to listen to the next episode, because we want to be the place you go on your podcast for real talk about addiction and recovery. Coach, take us home.
Yeah, I'm just excited to be here, excited for this opportunity to come to you live, and we're gonna be as often as possible to see you, and we're gonna be as often as possible to give you information. So just come join the team, right? We are Real Talk About Addiction and Recovery, eliminating the whisper.
Y'all, recovery's real. We'll see you soon.
It's time to end the whisper. So many suffer in silence. I might not save them all, no, but I'ma die trying. It's time to end the whisper. Never thought in my life it would happen to me, but it did. And now I'm the voice for recovery.